What is this? Grandpa's toy badge. Bet he bought it off eBay just to feel important. The laughter echoed through the pawn shop. A worn silver medal sat quietly on the glass counter. And the old man who brought it in, he didn't argue. He didn't explain. He just stood there, holding a piece of history the world seemed to have forgotten. But what none of them knew was that someone was already on their way. Someone who remembered exactly what that medal meant, because without it, they wouldn't be alive. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The bell above the door jingled like it always did. But that day, it felt different. I remember because the shop was quiet, colder than usual too. That early winter air had a way of slipping in through the cracks no matter how many times we taped the windows shut. I was at the counter, wiping down the glass, just trying to kill time. Troy was behind me, older, full-time, the kind of guy who thought sarcasm counted as personality. He was scrolling through his phone, earbuds in one ear, pretending to work. And then the door opened, and he walked in. The man was old, 80, maybe older, tall but slightly hunched. He wore a faded green coat, sleeves frayed at the cuffs, boots worn smooth with time. In his hands, both of them, he carried a small, wooden box. Not fancy, not new, but cared for. You could tell by the way he held it, like it was heavier than it looked. He didn't say a word, just walked, quiet and steady, up to the counter, and placed the box down gently, like it might break if it landed too hard. Troy didn't even glance up. I took a step forward. "Afternoon, sir," I offered. The man gave a single nod. Then he opened the box, and that's when the whole room changed. Inside was a medal, a silver star, tarnished along the edges. Ribbon faded to a dull red and blue. But it was real. You didn't need to know military history to feel it. There was an engraving on the back. W.E.E. Everett, Khe Sanh, Vietnam, 1968. I blinked. Khe Sanh. Even someone my age knew that name. I remembered it from a documentary, one of those battles where people didn't walk away the same, or didn't walk away at all. Troy finally looked up, snorted. "Is that a toy?" he scoffed. "Like your grandpa's costume jewelry." He leaned in, chewing his gum with just enough attitude to be noticed. "Or wait, is this one of those fake things you order online, Vietnam-style paperweight, from the back of the shop?" A guy browsing electric guitars laughed. "Hey, man, I think he's cosplaying history class." I felt my stomach tighten, but the old man didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't defend. He just looked down at the medal, then looked up at me. "I'm not here to sell it," he said. His voice was soft, rough around the edges, but there was something steady in it, something old and grounded. "I just wanted to know," he continued, "if it still means anything." I didn't know what to say. Troy laughed again, louder this time. "To who, man? This is a pawn shop, not Arlington." The old man, Walter Everett, I'd learn later, didn't react. He just stared down at that medal, like it held something the rest of us had forgotten how to carry. And maybe it did, because that day I learned something. Some people don't come in to ask for help. They come in to ask a question the world has stopped answering. Do we still remember? Do we still care? Do we even recognize sacrifice when it's right in front of us? Quiet, scarred, holding a box, and sometimes the silence you offer in return is louder than any insult. I didn't know why he brought it in at first. Not really. But later, I'd find out he had no debt, no overdue bills. He wasn't desperate. He was just alone and tired. The last of his unit, his best friend, had passed the week before. No funeral, no flag. Just a quiet headline in a small-town paper no one read. And for the first time in decades, Walter started to wonder if any of it had mattered. If anyone still remembered the hill they bled on in '68. If a medal meant anything once the world moved on. So he walked into the pawn shop with a box and a question. He wasn't looking for money. He was looking for memory. He wanted to know if the world still saw him. or if he'd finally become invisible, even with a silver star in his hands. And that's when the door opened for the second time that afternoon. For a second, no one moved. The box still sat open on the counter, the metal inside, quietly defiant. Walter Everett stood like a statue, not stiff, not tense, just still, his hands resting lightly on the edges of the box. Not gripping, not shaking, just holding. There was something in his eyes, not sadness, not pride, more like waiting, not for money, not for praise, but for something he hadn't seen in a long time. Recognition. I leaned in slightly, ignoring Troy, who had gone back to scrolling his phone, pretending to be too cool to care. But I cared. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way the room felt, like it was daring someone to say something real. And that's when Walter finally spoke. His voice was low, measured, but every word landed like a stone dropped into still water. Quezon, 68, Hill 881, South. We were pinned for 2 days straight. Mortars, snipers, no air cover. We didn't think we'd see daylight. I froze. He didn't say it to impress. He didn't even look at us when he spoke. He was looking past us, maybe at memory, maybe at ghosts. They gave me that medal because I pulled 2 boys out of the trench after a phosphorus strike. Couldn't feel my legs for 3 days after. One of them made it. The other didn't. He let the words settle, didn't push them, didn't dress them up, just truth, laid bare. I opened my mouth, but Troy got there first. He snorted again, louder this time. Dang, Grandpa, he said, laughing. You gonna sell the movie rights too? Walter didn't even blink. I'm not looking for applause, he said, eyes still steady. Just wondering if anyone still remembers what that medal meant before it ended up under glass. That's when I felt it. Something shift. The way a room changes when someone says something too honest to ignore. Even Troy felt it. He shut up. Not from guilt, not yet, but because Walter's voice made it impossible to speak over. Then, without a word, Walter reached forward and closed the box. Click. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even sad. It was final. I took a step forward, meaning to say something. Anything. But he was already turning, already walking away. And then the door opened. The bell above the frame gave its usual tired jingle. But this time, it didn't feel tired. It felt sharp, like it cut through the stillness with purpose. A man stepped in, late 30s, maybe trim, broad-shouldered, clean boots, calm posture, not flashy, not loud. But the room shifted the moment he entered, and not because of what he wore, though that caught my eye too. Dark blue service uniform, navy, subdued ribbons on the chest, and just above the left pocket, the unmistakable golden trident, Navy SEAL. He didn't look around, didn't speak. He just walked straight toward the counter, toward the man now standing with a box tucked under his arm, ready to leave, toward Walter Everett. Walter looked up as the SEAL approached. Their eyes met, and for a moment I swear time stopped. No one else mattered. Not me, not Troy, not the guy in the back with the guitar, not even the dust in the air, just the two of them. The SEAL didn't ask questions. He didn't offer small talk. He didn't even introduce himself. He reached out slowly and placed a hand on the box. Walter didn't stop him. The SEAL opened it, looked inside, read the engraving on the back of the metal. Then he straightened his back, took one slow, deliberate step back, and raised his hand to his brow. A perfect, formal salute, not rushed, not performative, no fanfare, just stillness and meaning. It was the kind of salute I'd only ever seen in movies, at funerals, at moments when the air itself felt sacred. But this wasn't a funeral, and yet it felt like resurrection. The room froze. Even Troy's gum stopped moving, and the SEAL held the salute for several long seconds, then let it fall with the same quiet control. Only then did he speak. His voice was calm, clear, and full of something I hadn't heard in the shop before. My father never made it home from Vietnam, but he talked about the man who pulled him out of that trench like he was a myth. Said he was SEAL Team 2. Said he saved 2 lives and disappeared before the dust even settled. Walter blinked, but said nothing. My father told me if I ever met the man who saved him, I was to thank him, salute him, and let him know he didn't forget. There was a silence after that, not empty, not awkward. It was full of weight, of memory, of a connection that crossed decades. Walter looked down at the box again, then at the seal. "Your father's name," he asked quietly. The SEAL's jaw tightened. "Matthew Reynolds, 1st Recon, Hill 8081, February 6th, 1968. Walter closed his eyes, just for a moment. Then he opened them and nodded. "I remember him." No one said anything else for a while, because there was nothing left to say, only everything to feel. No one breathed. Walter's fingers were still on the edge of the box. The Navy SEAL stood right in front of him, no fanfare, no theatrics, just presence. He slowly reached down and opened the wooden lid once more, took a single glance at the metal inside, ran his thumb gently across the worn silver face, then turned the metal over. His eyes lingered on the engraving. W.E. Everett, Khe Sanh, Vietnam, 1968. His expression didn't change, but something in the air did. Then he took one measured step back, squared his shoulders, boot heels clicked softly against the tile floor, and then he raised his hand. A full, formal, military salute. The kind they teach you only once, because the weight behind it never leaves. Not for show, not to prove a point, but for someone who had earned it long before most of us were even born. The kind of salute that doesn't just honor a person, it honors a moment, a promise, a sacrifice no one else saw. Walter didn't move, didn't return the gesture. He just looked into the young man's eyes. And for the first time that day, something shifted in his expression. Not pride, not surprise, but recognition. The SEAL lowered his hand with quiet precision. Then, finally, he spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but in that room, it felt like everything else faded beneath it. "You don't remember me?" he said, steady and clear, "but my father never forgot you." Walter blinked just once. His brow furrowed slightly, still silent. The SEAL reached into his coat, pulled out a folded, time-worn photograph. He handed it to Walter without ceremony. I couldn't see the picture from where I stood, but Walter did. He stared down at it for a long moment, one hand bracing the box, the other holding the photo like it might dissolve if he wasn't careful. The SEAL's voice softened. "That's him. Left side, bottom row. The photo was taken a few weeks before Khe Sanh. Recon unit first deployment." He paused and then added, "He told me the last thing he remembered was fire everywhere and someone dragging him through it." Another pause. "That someone was you." Walter let out a breath. Not dramatic, just enough to fog the glass on the metal. "He said you never waited for orders, just moved. Said you carried 2 men out before the second shell hit." His jaw tightened. "Said you disappeared before he could even say thank you." Troy shifted uncomfortably beside me. I didn't look at him. I couldn't, because I was watching something else entirely. A man coming face to face with a debt he thought would never be repaid. SEAL nodded once, more to himself than to anyone else. "I came to Rosedale looking for you. A man at the VFW said you stopped by the pawn shop sometimes. I didn't think I'd actually catch you." His gaze drifted to the box. "Didn't expect to walk in and see your medal being laughed at." And then he turned, looked straight at Troy, then at the guy by the guitars, then at the teenage kid sitting on the floor near the vintage consoles. "This medal," he said, voice rising only a fraction, "is the reason I exist." He let that sit for a beat. If he hadn't done what he did, my father would have died in that crater. I would have never been born. My sisters wouldn't exist. My mother would have buried a husband before they ever built a life together. Silence, not the awkward kind, the sacred kind. Then he turned back to Walter. I trained with the SEALs because of you, because he told me your name every year on the anniversary of that day." His voice cracked, just slightly. He said warm, "If you ever meet him, you salute him first, before you do anything else." Walter looked down at the photo again, then back at the man in front of him. "What was his name?" he asked quietly. The SEAL's mouth curved into something close to a smile, not wide, but full of weight. "Corporal Daniel Reynolds." Walter blinked, and then, for the first time, he nodded. "Reynolds." He said, "He was calling for his wife. I remember." His voice dropped lower, almost to a whisper. He held onto my sleeve like he thought it would disappear. "I told him we weren't done yet. Told him to breathe. Just keep breathing." The SEAL looked away, pressed his lips together, then looked back with glassy eyes. "He made it back. Told that story every year until the cancer took him. But you were always the part he never could describe." Walter closed the box again, this time not out of defeat, but closure, a door that didn't need to be locked anymore. Walter didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. He just looked at the young man standing in front of him, the son of a soldier he once pulled through fire, and gave a quiet nod. It wasn't just acknowledgement, it was something deeper, a quiet passing of something too old for words. The SEAL nodded back, and then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, he stepped aside and held the door open. Walter Everett walked out of the pawn shop without looking back. No music, no applause, just the soft tap of his boots against tile, and the hush of a room still holding its breath. But just before the SEAL turned to leave, he paused, glanced around once at me, at Troy, at the others, then looked straight at the spot where the box had been. His voice, when it came, was low, almost gentle, to us. He was the medal the world forgot to wear, and with that, he was gone. The bell above the door jingled one last time, and the silence that remained felt sacred. A week passed. Nothing big happened. The shop stayed quiet. Troy went back to his phone. Customers came and went. But something had shifted, and I felt it most the morning I opened the mail. There was a small package. No return address, no name on the outside, but the handwriting on the label looked careful. I opened it slowly. Inside a wooden box, the same one from that day. Same scratches, same weight, and inside the silver star, resting neatly on a folded piece of paper. I unfolded the note with both hands. 7 words, written in shaky, deliberate ink. "You were the only one who didn't laugh. Thank you. W.E." My throat tightened. I stared at the metal for a long time, then closed the box, just like he had. Quiet, intentional. That afternoon, I framed it, box and all, in a shadow case I bought with 2 days' pay, hung it behind the counter, dead center, right where customers always looked when they asked for discounts. No plaque, no explanation, just a silver star and a silence that finally belonged. Over the weeks that followed, I started to notice small things. The older customers, the ones who rarely spoke, they began to pause near the counter, eyes lingering on the metal. Some would nod once, others would stand a little straighter. One man, a Vietnam vet who used to pawn fishing reels, walked in with a thermos of coffee, stood in front of the case for 5 full minutes, then left without a word. But before he did, he pressed his palm gently against the glass, held it there, like he was remembering something only he had the right to carry. They kept coming, one by one, different ages, different uniforms, but they all stopped at the metal, and not a single one asked why it was there, because they already knew. 3 months later, I drove out to the old cemetery on the edge of town. Didn't even realize I was doing it until I turned off the highway. The grass was dry. Wind was soft. A few flags fluttered along the rows. I found the marker near the back. Simple, clean. Walter Everett SEAL Team 2, Khe Sanh, 1968. He never asked to be remembered, but he always deserved to be. I sat for a while. Didn't say anything. just listened. Birds, leaves, that quiet hum of presence that only shows up when someone still matters. I left a cup of gas station coffee on the stone. Didn't know if he liked it black, but somehow, I figured he did. When I stood to leave, I looked down at the inscription one last time, and I thought about what the seal had said. He was the metal the world forgot to wear, but not anymore. Not in that shop, not in this town, not to me. Because sometimes, the ones who go quiet aren't lost. They're just waiting to be remembered. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way, often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition. Some just need to know that today, someone isn't going hungry. And sometimes, that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever. Subscribe to Grateful Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost.